Welcome back to That Jewish Podcast. I'm your host, Yirmeyahu. Here we talk about Jewish life, Jewish growth, and Jewish unity in a complicated world. Today's question is big. It's uncomfortable, and it's increasingly important. Who gets to speak for the Jews? Every time something happens in the world, war, anti-Semitism, politics, Israel, social issues, someone steps up and says the Jewish community believes fill in the blank. But do we? Who decides that? Who gave them that role? And what does Torah say about representation, disagreement, and responsibility inside of Am Israel? Today, we're going deep into Torah, Tanakh, Chazal, to understand how Judaism views leadership and unity without uniformity. Let's get into it.
You believe that a Yid will win in the end. That if you stand with Hashem and you stand for what's right, you will march across the finish line. You will have victory.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another episode of That Jewish Podcast. I am your host, Yirmeyahu. I'm so glad you guys decided to join me here just for a few moments to talk about what we love to talk about, the Jewish people, how we get better, how we come together, all different kind of issues, all different kind of subjects right here on That Jewish Podcast. We're talking everything Jewish. Listen, guys, if you haven't done so already, please share this podcast with somebody that you know. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're just about everywhere you can find a podcast. So share it with your friends, share it with your family. I'm sure they will be blessed by this podcast. So let's get right into. And before I get into it, actually, I want to tell you, if you haven't listened to it already, go back and listen to the episode with me and my wife Hannah. We talk about our another segment of our conversion and process, and that's our kids. You know, how our kids walk through it, how they transition from a secular school to a Jewish academy, and all the struggles and things that come with that, and how the Jewish community right here in Memphis, Tennessee, literally wrapped their arms around us and became a huge resource so that our children could successfully convert and come through on the other side better than they were on the side before. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it's literally the episode right before this one. So go check that out. But let's get right into this episode today, ladies and gentlemen. Who speaks for the Jewish people, right? So when we talk about the Jewish voice, we have to go back to where the Jewish people became a nation, Har Sinai. So in Shemot, we're in Shemot now, chapter 19, verse 6, it says, "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Notice what Hashem does not say. He doesn't say you will be a holy leadership class. He doesn't say you'll be a nation with one personality. He says a holy nation, Goy Kadosh. A nation means diversity. Different tribes, different temperaments, different strengths, different struggles. Chazal teach that every Jewish soul, past, present, future, was at Sinai. That means from the very beginning, Judaism was built with multiple legitimate ways of connecting to Torah and serving Hashem. So when we see Jews today with different hashkafot, political views, cultural styles, or religious journeys, that's not a glitch in Judaism. That's baked into the design. So the mistake is thinking that Jewish unity means Jewish sameness, and it doesn't. And unfortunately, I see the same thing in the African American community. Everybody believes that just because a Jesse Jackson or an Al Sharpton or, name somebody that's famous in the African American community here in the United States of America, when they walk up to a microphone, they're speaking for all of the African American community, and they're not. But the problem is most people, including African Americans, believe that they are. And the sad thing about that is it creates something called groupthink. And in groupthink, you don't have the room to think outside of what you believe the majority thinks. And the real is that the majority probably doesn't even think that. Most people are just scared to think something different because the loudest people in the room have told you how to think, how to vote, how to galvanize your emotions, what to care about, what not to care about, what to get excited about, what to get fearful about, what to get upset about. And if you don't do these things, then you're quote unquote not an African American. I've not been in this Jewish way long. I've not seen that in the Jewish community thus far. There is clearly different types of Jews, but the Jewish community, for what I've seen so far, is unified to a point, especially when things like October 7th happens and things of that nature. Hopefully it doesn't just take tragedy for us to come together as one. But obviously you have Orthodox Jews and Reform Jews, and the majority of Jewish people in the United States, at least, vote Democrat. But then when you go to the Orthodox side, like 85% of Orthodoxy votes Republican, and you have people who are conservative, people live, you have religious Jews, secular Jews, you have people on the far right, far left. It's a whole myriad of things, and they exist. They know they exist. And they're not necessarily quote unquote all celebrated because people do disagree, and that's okay. I think the best growth happens in dissent. I don't think the best growth happens when we're all agreeing on things. Again, back to the African American community. It's a travesty that the black political caucus are all Democrats, because that doesn't speak for everybody. It doesn't represent everybody in the African American community. There are some people in the African American community, no matter what their tax bracket is, they're conservative. They believe in conservative values. They go to church. They believe in the sanctity of life. They believe in one man and one woman should be married. They don't believe in high taxes. They believe in small government, but they're not at all represented. And I would fare to believe there's a large portion of them, but you don't hear them because they're not the loudest voice in the room. So if you would look at the African American community in America, you would think that they're all Democrat, they're all liberal, they all agree, they all voted for Kamala Harris and all these different things, but that's just not true. The problem is that we have one voice speaking for 45 million people, or a couple of voices, loud voices speaking for 45 million people in this country. That's how many African Americans in this country, about 12%. That's 45 million. That's just not true. It's not true. So again, the mistake is thinking that the Jewish unity means Jewish sameness. It's just in the African American community. When African Americans get together, just because they're unified doesn't mean that they're the same. Unity at Sinai came from shared covenant, not identical personalities, right? So there's even disagreement within Torah. So some people panic when Jews disagree publicly. They think disagreement means disloyalty, and it doesn't. The Torah says the opposite. And there's a train coming by too, so if you guys hear it, I do apologize. But it says in the Talmud in Yirmeyahu 13b, after years of debate between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, these are two different rabbis, the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai, huge rabbis. Heavenly voice declares, "These and those are the words of the living God." Let that sink in. So if you don't know much about Hillel and Shammai, it's not that they, quote unquote, disagreed all the time. There are times where they actually agree on things, but their houses of study or their ways of study were a little bit different. That's all. They're a little bit different. I think Shammai was a tad bit more machmir, and Hillel was a little bit more lenient, but not lenient to say you could do any and everything, just lenient when it came to, or lenient next to Shammai. So he wasn't like reform, but based on Shammai's interpretation of things, Hillel was a little bit more lenient, right? That's to say, for instance, Memphis is a small city. Well, it's a small city when you put it up next to Chicago, but it's not a small city when you put it up next to, I don't know, rural America. So it's small relative to. So that's the word I'm looking for, relative. So Beit Hillel is lenient relative to Shammai, right? So you have two opposing opinions. So both preserved, both called divine, I'll say that again. Shammai, Hillel disagreed on a lot of things. A heavenly voice declared that these and those are the words of the living God. And both of their opinions have been preserved. Both are called divine. So Judaism doesn't erase Machloket. It doesn't erase arguments and disagreements. It elevates it when it's done for the sake of heaven. What does that mean? That means you can disagree and still be part of Torah. You can argue and still be serving Hashem. And you can see things differently and still be loyal to Am Israel. The danger begins when disagreement turns into delegitimization. When someone says, if you think differently, you're not really Jewish. Or only my group represents authentic Judaism, right? That's not Torah disagreement. That's ego wrapped in religious language. If you think differently, that doesn't change the fact that your mother was Jewish. It doesn't change the fact that you converted into Judaism. It doesn't change the fact that the anti-Semite doesn't care whether you're religious or secular, whether you study Talmud or Daf every day, or whether you eat at Burger King and McDonald's. They don't care. They don't like you because you're Jewish. And one group who is religious can't say that, oh, well, this is authentic Judaism. This is not. Just because we have disagreements within even orthodoxy doesn't make some person more legitimate than the other, in my opinion. All right. Again, I can't speak for all of Israel. This is what this whole podcast episode is about. But in my opinion, speaking as a Jew, we have to get away from the language of who's the real Jew or who's authentic, who has authentic Judaism. Because I'm going to tell you now, these are the conversations that people are having who hate us. They don't think we are legit Jews. They think that we are imposters. They think that we have stolen something. They think that we don't belong in the land of Israel. They think that our ancestry comes from Europe or North Africa, or you've converted into Zionism, so you've delegitimized your blackness. So you're not even a Jew. You're not even black. These are the conversations that people are having who hate us, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot sound like the people who hate us. Every day in my prayers, 3 times a day, I pray that Hashem takes the yoke of baseless hatred off of our necks and give us the yoke of baseless love for one another. That our speech about one another becomes loving and caring and thoughtful. We should not sound like the white supremacist. We should not sound like the black supremacist. We should not be sounding like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes when we're talking about one another. We should have love on our lips for one another at all times, understanding that I may disagree with what my brother and sister's doing, but I'm still going to love them regardless. And I know that's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, because sometimes we look on across the other aisle, whether you're a conservative Jew, liberal Jew, whatever it is. And I don't like putting labels on people, but we do it to ourselves. And you may say, oh, well, they're the reason that there is anti-Semitism, or they're the reason that Mashiach's not back, or they're the reason that Israel's not the best country in the world, or, the best. They're the reason that we are X, Y. They're the reason they're the problem. Like the voting in voting in New York lately. So Mamdani is the mayor of New York City, one of the largest cities in the world, and I think the second largest concentration of Jews outside of Israel, or the largest concentration of Jews outside of the land of Israel. And a lot of people's like, oh yeah, 40% of Jews in New York voted for this guy. Or maybe it's higher than that, I don't know. They're the reason why the Jews are going to, have all this turmoil the next 4 years. Like, that's not the speech we should be having about one another. We should sit at the table. We should be sitting at a table with our brothers and sisters and say, why? Okay, what he said. It's on record. You can go to Twitter, on his Twitter page, not somebody else's tweeting for him, his Twitter page. We can go on YouTube and listen to his speeches during the October 7th, and how he campaigned with the pro-Palestine people, and sit down and ask the question, why would you vote for Mamdani? What about Mamdani made you say, I want that guy? What is it about Eric Adams that you didn't want to vote for him? What is it about Cuomo that you didn't want to vote for him? Or whoever the Republican candidate was, and I don't think they even had a chance there, really. But we need to sit down at the table and ask questions, not point fingers, but get an understanding. Because when we start debating one another, debate is only so I'm listening to my opponent so that I can destroy their worldview and their opinion. That's debate. But listening to understand, coming at a table to talk means you may not convince me, you may not change my mind, but at least I understand where you're coming from. At least I have a better understanding of who you are. Now, I still may not agree, and that's okay, but at least I have an understanding of what you're coming from. So instead of pointing fingers and blaming these people who voted for Mamdani for the quote unquote next terrible 4 years for all the Jews in New York, let's sit down and have a conversation. If you know one of them, if they're a family, if they're a friend, if they're a former acquaintance, look them up on WhatsApp and say, hey, I would love to have a conversation. I don't 100% understand why Mamdani is the mayor of the largest concentration of Jews outside of Israel, but let's sit down. I'll be in New York soon, or we can just do a FaceTime on WhatsApp and tell me your thought process. What brought you to this moment? So, and a lot of times we'll find, so I've talked to plenty of people, like I don't vote Democrat. I'm more of a libertarian. So, but I sit down with people and I find that people just really believe in the tenets of the Democratic Party. They may not believe in Kamala. They may not believe in Joe Biden. They may not believe in all these people, but they believe in the core values of what it means to be Democrat. And they believe that some candidate at some point is going to bring those things back. And the same with voting for Donald Trump. A lot of people don't care about Donald Trump or MAGA or this crazy stuff that's going on in the Republican Party. They really believe in the tenets of the Republican Party, and that's okay. But we have to sit down at the table and have these conversations, because we don't have these conversations with one another. What happens is we just assume what someone is doing, and then we can take that and just use our imagination, just run wild with it. All right. Because the truth is, no one person carries the whole story. They just don't. Like you can't point to say that Jew speaks for everybody. Like Netanyahu doesn't speak for all Jews. All right. The Rebbe didn't speak for all Jews. The Satmar don't speak for all Jews. The rabbi at the temple that's at the political rallies, they don't speak for all Jews. They just don't. So the Talmud in Sanhedrin 37a says, therefore, man was created alone to teach that whoever sustains one life is as if he sustained an entire world. Ladies and gentlemen, every human is an entire world. Every Jew is an entire Jewish world. One Jew carries generations of Torah learning. Another carries the pain of Jewish history. Another carries the fire of activism. Another carries the story of return and teshuvah. So when someone claims, quote unquote, I speak for the Jews, they are, even if it's unintentionally, shrinking an entire nation that Hashem has made vast. You can speak from your experience, your opinions. You can speak from how you interpret Torah. You can speak from your pain or your passion, but no one Jew contains Kol Yisrael. We are people made of worlds, but we are responsible for one another. Now here's the balance, because Torah never lets us go to extremes. The Talmud in Shavuos 39a, it says, all of Israel are responsible for one another. So while you don't speak for every Jew, you are never speaking in isolation either. I'll say that again. So while you don't speak for every Jew, you're never speaking in isolation either. like it or not, when a Jew goes viral, when a Jew is interviewed, when a Jew posts online, the world often hears, this is what Jews think. And I'm aware of that. Even as someone new to the fold, even as an African American, I'm very careful of what I post, repost online. And not that I have these hundreds of thousands of followers or whatever. Maybe one day that will happen. That's not my goal. My goal is to inform, not to influence. But as this podcast grows, hopefully it does get out to more people. Hopefully more ears do hear this information, so that we can have a balanced view of who we are as a people, and not just Jewish people, because I think I have a unique perspective because I'm also African American. And just like Jews, people have these preconceived notions about what African Americans in America are. And a lot of them are just plain wrong. They're based off of long held racist stereotypes that puts African Americans in this one little box, and it doesn't allow them to have to break out of that box. And the truth is, just like the Jewish community, the African American community is a mosaic of different thoughts, different ideas, creativity, different music, different wants, different needs, different everything, different political beliefs, religious beliefs, everything is boxed in there. So it's not just this one thing. It's never just this one thing. So my goal, especially online, is try to post things that are part of my values and my real view, but can be said from different voices. So it may be somebody from Unpacked. It may be somebody from the Reformed religion. It may be someone who said, it may be a secular Jew who is just very passionate about Zionism, right? Because I'm passionate about Zionism. You know, it may be a religious Jew who's passionate about Jewish unity. Well, I'm passionate about Jewish unity. It may be just a Jew, whether secular or not, just talking about the history of Jews to dispel lies and conspiracy theories. Well, I'm passionate about that. So if I'm passionate about it and matches my values, I don't care where this Jew is coming from. The fact is they're Jewish. So they're my brother. They're my sister. They're Am Israel. And we're together. It doesn't matter. And I preach this on the African American side as well, to almost a brick wall almost, because I think that groupthink has really set in, right? It's just years and years and years and years and years and years of this is who you are, this is who you are, this is who you are, this is how you should think, this is how you should vote, this is how you should believe, this is how you should walk, this is how you should talk, this is where you should live. All these different things, and these loud voices speak for 45 million people when most of them don't even believe half the stuff that's coming out of these quote unquote representatives' mouths. We don't live that way. We don't think that way. Don't vote that way. But it is what it is, right? So I wish that we can understand that no matter what, at the end of the day, when I walk out of the house, I'm walking out of the house to a world that believes that I'm a black man. I hate that term black because there's nothing on my body that's black except for maybe the pants I'm wearing and the chain that's around my neck. And because of the zeets that I wear, the kippah that I wear, where I'm walking into on Shabbos, or where I'm walking into 3 times a day, the world knows that I'm Jewish as well. They don't care if I voted for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. They don't care if I go to First Street Missionary Baptist Church or go to Baron Hirsch Congregation. If someone is rolling down the street and they don't like black folks and they don't like Jews, I'm an easy target. My family's an easy target. They don't care. So if the people that hate us, and I say this all the time, if the people that hate us see us as African American or see us as Jew, we need to see ourselves that way. Be proud to be Jewish. Don't apologize for that. Be proud to be African American. Don't apologize for that. Don't change the way God made you. Don't try to escape the group that God put you in. Be proud of it. Learn your history. Yeah, some of the history is painful, but a lot of it is resilient, and it can give you much inspiration. Now, I'm not saying go to some extreme and be so black that you exclude everybody else and you hate everybody else, and go so extreme that you so Jewish that it's Jews and Jews alone and nobody else. But learn to love who God made you. Listen, I was at an event. I won't name the event because I actually think it's a very, very good event. I think it's a very good program. I think it's well-meaning. I don't know where the disconnect is, but either way, my experience so far has been good. The people are amazing. The people are good. But I find that the people that are in there, as far as the people that are Jewish that are in there, may not be 100% educated about who they are. Maybe they didn't go to Jewish day school. Maybe they didn't go to Jewish academy. Maybe they didn't go to YU. And that's fine. That's beautiful. Maybe they didn't go to Hillel on their campus. That's fine. That's okay. But because of that, they say strange things. For instance, I was at a table with a Jewish man and an African-American woman, and he looks at her and he says, well, you Christians probably know more about the Bible than we do, because we only study it in Hebrew, and we don't know what it says in English. Now, whether that's true about his experience or not, one, you shouldn't say it out loud. Two, why don't you study in English? I know Chazal teach that you should study the Torah, you should study the Talmud, you should even pray in the language that you understand so that you can study and pray with kavanah, with intention, so that it means something to you, right? And two, even studying in Hebrew, not knowing the English, trust me, you know more of your Torah than Christians do, because the Christian Bible don't say the same stuff that the Hebrew Bible says. It adds things, it takes things away. It does a lot of gymnastics to make their quote unquote New Testament sound legit. So never get in a room with people of other religions and say that they know your book more than you do. That's your story. That's our story, our history. It's us. The Torah belongs to us. It was given to us. And we worked hard to get it. And we need to work hard to keep it. It's our legacy to our children. When the Mashiach comes, it's not, yes, the whole world will be involved, but the Mashiach will be Jewish. That's very important to know. It's very important to know. Also, I've heard, the first time I went to this organization, I had to do pretty much an apologetic on what Orthodoxy thought about women, because there was a comment made that was very disparaging to the way that the Orthodox Jewish community looks at the role of women. And I had to let them know, no, actually Orthodoxy believe that women are actually elevated, that they're higher than men. There's plenty of different sources to say that, whether it's from Rabbi Nachman, whether it's from Chazal and your sitter, whether it's from Rashi, wherever it may be. There's a reason why women don't have to pray 3 times a day. There's a reason why men say, thank God that I was not born a woman. Not because they would hate being a woman. It's almost like cognitive dissonance. Like, man, I need to find a positive way of why I have to do all these mitzvot and they don't. Women don't have to do it because they're closer. They're closer to Hashem than a man is. They're more elevated. They're more elevated. They're not lower. They're more elevated. So I had to explain that whole thing. And I hope I explained it well. There's one Orthodox person in the room who was shaking their head in agreement. But it's things like that. Apologizing for being Jewish, saying weird things about, your level of competency when it comes to Torah. You don't have to apologize for those things, especially in a room mixed with other mixed people. Be proud that you're a Jew. Don't apologize for it. Don't apologize for it, because your experience is valid. Your experience is valid. And one Jew, one idea doesn't speak for everybody. So, although we have to be careful of what we post, we also have to be careful of what we say in mixed company. Because what you say in mixed company is the same as me posting online, right? And somebody's going to run away with that. And they're going to say, yo, them Jews, they don't even know their own Bible. You know, us Christians, we know the Bible better than they do. They don't even study it in their own language. Like, oh, them Jews, look how they treat women. It's just so bad. You know, we don't want that to be said about us. So it's not fair, but it's real. We have to take responsibility for each other. So Torah asks us to hold two truths at once. I want y'all to listen to this. Listen to this. Turn up the volume, right? You're not the official spokesman of the Jewish people. I'll say that again. You, yes, you, listening to this podcast, you are not the official spokesperson of the Jewish people. Your rabbi's not, your shul's not, your group is not, your federation is not. They're not the official spokesperson. But your words still affect the Jewish people. So be, again, very careful. You're typing before you press send. You have to think, how will people perceive the Jewish people? Not just me, the Jewish people when I send this. Before you open your mouth and say something weird, ask the question, how will this person leave this conversation perceiving the Jewish people? Yes, it is a high, tall order of responsibility. But it exists. And here's what it does. It creates humility. Because before we speak publicly as Jews, we should ask, am I speaking with responsibility? Am I adding dignity to the Jewish people or heat to the fire? Am I representing Torah values even when I'm expressing a personal opinion? Responsibility doesn't mean silence. It means awareness. And there may be some of you listening saying, hey, listen, I'm not even religious. I'm a secular Jew. But the world doesn't even know what that is. Sorry to tell you. When the world thinks of a Jewish person, they're thinking of someone in Brooklyn with a long black trench coat, white undershirt, with a strimal, with a talit, going to shul. They can't comprehend what a secular Jew is. So when you speak, again, especially in mixed company, you have to ask yourself those questions. Am I speaking responsibility? Am I adding dignity to the Jewish people? Am I representing Torah values even when I'm expressing a personal opinion? And it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I'd rather not say. And it's even okay to say, listen, I don't speak for all the Jewish people, but here's my opinion, right? And make people understand that before you get into your opinion, all right? So leadership in Judaism isn't service. Leadership in Judaism is service. It's not control. Leadership in Judaism is service, not control. What does that have to do with how we speak for one another? The Torah's model of leadership is radically different from the modern celebrity culture. A Jewish king was commanded to carry a Torah scroll with him at all times. Why is that? It was a reminder that he was under the Torah, not above the people. I'll say that again. Real Jewish leadership is someone who is under the Torah, not above the people. And the prophet Yirmeyahu, also known as Jeremiah, says in his Sefer, chapter 9, verses 22 and 23, let not the wise boast of his wisdom. Rather, let one who boasts boast only of this, understanding and knowing me. Real Jewish authority isn't loud. It isn't self-appointed. It isn't built on followers. It's built on one, humility. Remember Moshe Rabbeinu. It's built on accountability. It's built on alignment with Torah and care for the people. The loudest Jewish voice is not automatically the most authentic Jewish voice. Also, let that sink in. The loudest Jewish voice is not automatically the most authentic Jewish voice. Why is that? Because usually the loudest voice is the one who wishes they could speak for the Jewish people or who wishes they can speak for the African American people. But their views are usually either antithetical or not fully in sync with the whole of the people. So in Torah, leadership is not about controlling the narrative. It's about carrying the people with responsibility before Hashem. Again, Torah leadership is not about controlling the narrative, ladies and gentlemen. It's about carrying the people with responsibility before Hashem. Purim is coming up. It's right around the corner. So when we look at in the Megillah Esther, we see that Mordecai didn't even speak alone. He didn't speak himself for the whole entire Jewish people. Mordecai does become a national figure, but when crisis hits, he does not act solo. In the book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 16, Esther tells him, "Go gather all the Jews." Before salvation comes, there must be a gathering. Even the greatest leaders in Tanakh don't replace the people. Again, the greatest people in Tanakh, the greatest leaders in Tanakh, they do not replace the people. They do what? They mobilize the people. Jewish destiny is not shaped by one spokesperson. It's shaped by collective teshuvah, collective tefillah, collective responsibility. So when we ask who speaks for the Jews, the Tanakh's answer is the Jewish story moves forward when Jews come together. It's not when one voice claims ownership of the nation. It's when the nation speaks in one voice. So here's the question. And here's an honest answer. Who speaks for the Jews? The answer, no one and all of us. No single person speaks for all Jews. We're too old, we're too wide, we're too layered. But every Jew who speaks with sincerity, responsibility, and connection to our people does speak as part of the Jewish story. The key difference is this. It's not, quote, I speak for the Jews. It is, quote, I speak as a Jew from within my people. I speak for the Jews erases other voices. I speak as a Jew from within my people adds another strand to the tapestry of Am Israel. Judaism is not a solo performance. It's a chorus. And harmony doesn't mean everyone sings the same note. Ask your cantor. He'll tell you. It means different notes are held with awareness of each other. In Pirkei Avot, it teaches, in a place where there's no leaders, strive to be a leader. Judaism doesn't tell us to stay silent. It tells us to step up, to speak, even to lead. But we have to speak and lead with humility instead of ego, responsibility instead of reaction, love for all Jews, even the ones you disagree with, and the awareness that you are a voice in the people, not the voice of the people. Because the Jewish voice was never meant to be one mouth. It's a million of souls standing at Mount Sinai together. Listen, thanks for listening to this Jewish podcast. Again, I'm your host, Yirmeyahu. If this episode stretched your thinking, share it with someone who sees the Jewish world differently than you do. This is how we grow, not by silencing each other, but by learning how to stand together even when we don't sound the same. As always, light up the darkness, change the world. Peace.